So we're going to learn how to make the dowel polishing tools, which will look like this. For this project, you're going to need some doweling. I've already cut this down from a 4-foot length, so it's a little bit more manageable on my bench. And I've also marked off roughly 1 inch increments on there, which is what I want the dowel pieces to be at. The diameter of dowel that I'm using is 7/16. There we go, it focused up there. So 7/16, which gives you, a bit of a bigger size dowel tool, but also allows a little bit of, like, quite a bit of leeway actually. When it comes to when you tune it, you're going to end up losing some of the meat on it. You can also go with something smaller like this, which is I think this one is 3/8 if I'm not mistaken. Smaller than that, it starts getting really hard to drill the holes in there, and we have a different solution for using doweling to get into tighter crevices and spots on your carving. The next thing that we're going to need is you're going to need the rod to go in it. So that stuff there. I am using, it's 3/16 or 3/32 welding rod. So it's not copper, although it is copper colored. It's just a copper coating. So it comes in like this big long tube like this. There's generally about 12 pieces in there, I think, of 3-foot length, so that'll last you like forever. If you don't want to pick that up, if you're not going to be using a lot of it, you can just pick up some smaller, like 3/32 aluminum. If you are using a colleted, excuse me, a colleted bit or chuck in your Fordham, you're going to want to make sure that you have the right diameter that will fit into those collets. Other things that we can use are when your old bits and stuff like that start to kind of get worn out, you can always use the ends of those to make for the tools as well. So with something like this, if this was all worn out, I'd cut it off and then use the end part there. Next thing we're going to need is you're going to need a drill bit. The drill bit's going to be the same diameter as whatever rod that you got. We'll be using some 2-part epoxy again. This is the stuff that I've been using. You don't have to use this brand. I like this stuff just because it comes in a 2-part little like squeeze tube, and both parts come out equally nice. Super user friendly kind of way to do it. We can reuse whatever you were using when you did the rubber felt washer, felt pad mandrels that you were making. So nice flat surface. I got this chunk of wood, I've drilled holes in it, that way I can, when things are drying, things can stand up, or I can just pop them on their edge and let them dry that way. You're going to want something that you can mix up your epoxy on. I use a yogurt container lid. I've got some stir sticks. If you don't have like a chunk of wood or something like that, just anything that's going to be flat, because these guys are going to dry upside down with the stick sticking out. So just something nice and flat, and something where you're not going to get epoxy all over your workbench. So you can put down some wax paper or something like that. The other thing that we're going to need, because we're going to need to cut the doweling, is I've got like this little handy little saw. It's a little miter saw, which is nice because then I can get nice straight cuts. I tend to make a lot of these at one time, so I generally will cut my doweling on a compound miter saw or on a band saw, just because I can get a lot of them done really quickly with very minimal effort. And then, of course, you're going to have to cut your rod down. So easiest way to do that is with a jeweler's saw. And I don't think I need to demonstrate that because I'm pretty certain that everybody here already knows how to use a jeweler's saw. When you cut those guys down, you're going to want them to end up being approximately 1.5 inches long. The reason why is because a good 1/2 inch or so is going to end up inside the dowel once we're finished it off. And then the other part, of course, is going to have to go into your Fordham. So let's get started on that. I've already cut down my rod, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut down my dowel just to show you guys that. So I'm just going to line it up. Doesn't have to be exactly 1 inch. Can be, a little less, a little more. It's not crucial to be exact in measurements. Just roughly that. This looks a little bit more difficult than it normally is, just because I need to have it in front of the camera. I don't have it balanced on the edge of my workbench. So now that you've cut down your piece of doweling, you're going to want to take a Sharpie or a pencil or whatever you need to mark it. Just mark the center. It doesn't have to be exact, just pretty close. And now I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to bring you over to my drill press to do the next part. Okay, so now we're over at my drill press here. I've already got the drill bit loaded up. You'll see this green tape that's around there. It's just green painter's tape. It just makes a nice, you can measure up from the bottom, the tip of the bit, and measure that up, and then that way you know roughly how far down you need to drill. So once it hits the bottom, I guess, of the paint, that's when you know you need to stop. So we're going to drill down approximately just over halfway. So with the dowel being around 1 inch thick, you want it to be drilled down at least 1/2 inch in, or a little bit more. You don't want it to go all the way through though. So if you have a drill press vise, that's awesome. I recently moved and I have no idea where mine went to. So I'm going to use this pair of pliers. All I'm doing is basically I just want it to, something so that, I can hold on to it and be able to kind of center everything up. It also keeps it nice and flat. And the piece of wood underneath as well is just to kind of keep the bottom part flat. So I'm trying to get the straightest hole I possibly can. So just turn this guy on. Just drill straight down to where the tape is. And we're good to go. And I'll bring you back over to my workbench. Okay, so now that we're back over at my bench, we'll finish this off. So what we need to do is we need to mix up a little bit of the 5-minute epoxy. You don't need a lot of it. Don't mix up a ton of it at a time. Just whatever you think is going to be manageable to get what you have available glued up. Because as the epoxy sets, becomes unmanageable to work with. I'm going to give it a nice little mix up. Make sure it's all uniformly mixed together, which will give it the best opportunity to set and won't end up being sticky. So when that's done, I'm just going to grab my piece of wood here that I was going to use as basically my holder for it. So with this, nice and easy. So the hole's in there, fairly straight. Just roll your piece of rod in the epoxy. So you end up with pretty gloopy amount here. I don't think it's going to want to focus up for me. No, it's not focusing up for me. So either way, you can kind of see, and then you're just going to push the rod down inside as far as it can go. And once it's down as far as it can go, you'll see it'll have like a little bit of a goop on top there. That's perfect. Set her, let her dry. And then once she's dry, you can join me for the next video, which will be how to tune your wood dowel tool, as well as make some smaller wood dowel tools that will help you with your polishing.